What if I told you that in just 22 seconds, one American airman saved 11 lives while his own body was literally on fire? That in those 22 seconds, burning at over 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit, he carried death itself through a B-29 bomber high above Japan. The year was 1945, and America was about to meet a hero it would never fully know. His name was Henry Eugene Irwin, but his crew called him Red, a 23-year-old radio operator from Alabama, who was about to perform what military historians would later call one of the most heroic acts in the annals of American warfare. This is the story they don't teach in history class. This is the story of 22 seconds that changed everything. Born on May 8, 1921, in the small town of Adamsville, Alabama, Henry Eugene Irwin was as ordinary as they come. The son of a railroad worker, Red grew up during the Great Depression, learning the values of hard work, family, and duty that would define his generation. He was the kind of young man you'd find in any small American town. Handsome, friendly, with a smile that could light up a room and a laugh that drew people in. When America entered World War II, Red didn't hesitate. Like millions of his generation, he answered the call to serve. He enlisted in the Army Air Forces, drawn to the promise of flying in the mighty B-29 Superfortress, the most advanced bomber in the world. These were the planes that would carry the war to Japan's doorstep, flying missions that would help end the Pacific War. By 1945, Staff Sergeant Henry Irwin had found his place aboard the B-29 City of Los Angeles. As the radio operator, he was the vital link between his crew and the outside world. But Red had an additional duty, one that would prove fateful on a spring morning over Japan. He was responsible for dropping phosphorus smoke bombs to help bomber formations assemble over their targets. These weren't ordinary flares. White phosphorus burns at temperatures exceeding 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt steel. It ignites spontaneously in air and cannot be extinguished with water. In the hands of a trained airman, it was a tool of war. But in the wrong circumstances, it became something far more dangerous. April 12, 1945. The war in the Pacific was entering its final phase, but the fighting was far from over. The Japanese were preparing for a desperate defense of their homeland, and American B-29s were flying round-the-clock missions to weaken their resolve. On this particular morning, the city of Los Angeles was leading a formation of B-29 superfortresses toward Koriyama, Japan, an industrial target that fed the Japanese war machine. Captain George Simmerl guided the massive bomber through the pre-dawn darkness. Climbing to 20,000 feet with his crew of 11 men, in the belly of the aircraft, Red Irwin prepared for his crucial role. When they reached the assembly point, he would drop 3 colored flares and 1 white phosphorus marker through a chute near his radio station. These markers would fall several hundred feet and could be seen for dozens of miles, serving as a rallying point for the bomber formation. At precisely 9:15 a.m., as the city of Los Angeles approached the assembly area, Red received the signal. He pulled the pin on the 20-pound white phosphorus canister and released it into the chute. The 6-second fuse was designed to ignite the phosphorus after the bomb had fallen safely away from the aircraft. But something went catastrophically wrong. Instead of falling away, the phosphorus bomb detonated prematurely, while still inside the aircraft. The explosion was instantaneous and devastating. The bomb bounced back up through the chute and struck Red directly in the face with the force of a blowtorch. White-hot phosphorus, burning at 2,300 degrees, splattered across his face, his arms, his chest. In seconds, the aircraft filled with thick, choking smoke. The cockpit became a nightmare of confusion as Captain Simmerl and his co-pilot found themselves flying blind. The bomber began to pitch and roll, its 11-man crew suddenly facing death in the skies over Japan. The phosphorus burned through Red's flesh to the bone, searing away his nose, his right ear, and destroying his right eye. His body was literally on fire, and the phosphorus couldn't be extinguished. In that moment of absolute terror, with his flesh burning away and smoke choking the life from his crewmates, Red Irwin faced a choice that would define not just his life, but the meaning of heroism itself. What happened next defies comprehension. Blinded by the burning phosphorus, his face destroyed, his body aflame, Red Irwin made a decision that saved 11 lives and earned him a place in the pantheon of American heroes. He picked up the burning phosphorus bomb with his bare hands. Think about that for a moment. This device was burning at over 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt copper. The phosphorus had already burned through his flesh to the bone, and yet red. Irwin wrapped his hands around this instrument of death and began to carry it through the aircraft. For 22 seconds, that must have felt like an eternity. Red stumbled forward through the smoke-filled bomber. He couldn't see. The phosphorus had destroyed his right eye and blinded the left. He couldn't breathe. The smoke was choking everyone aboard. But he kept moving, step by agonizing step, toward the cockpit. His crewmates watched in horror and awe as their radio operator, his body on fire, carried certain death away from them. The phosphorus continued to burn through his hands, his arms, his chest. Particles of the deadly chemicals scattered across the aircraft, starting small fires wherever they landed. But Red kept moving. He reached the cockpit where Captain Simrel was fighting to control the aircraft. Without hesitation, Red threw the burning phosphorus bomb out the navigator's window. The immediate threat was gone, but Red's sacrifice had only just begun. The phosphorus had burned so deeply into his body that it couldn't be extinguished. His flesh continued to burn even after the bomb was gone. Captain Simrel immediately aborted the mission and turned the city of Los Angeles toward Iwo Jima, the closest point where Red could receive medical treatment. But everyone aboard knew the terrible truth. Red Irwin was dying. As the city of Los Angeles raced toward Iwo Jima, Red's crewmates did everything they could to help him. They poured water over his burning flesh, but phosphorus can't be extinguished with water. They wrapped him in blankets, but the chemical continued to burn. Red remained conscious through it all, never crying out, never complaining. He had saved their lives, and now they were determined to save his. The aircraft landed at Iwo Jima, and Red was rushed to the field hospital. Medical staff took one look at his injuries and shook their heads. Nobody could survive burns this severe. Phosphorus had burned through his flesh to the bone. His face was destroyed, his hands were ruined, and his body was still on fire. They gave him morphine and prepared to make him comfortable as he died. But Red Irwin had other plans. News of his heroic act spread quickly through the Army Air Forces. When General Curtis LeMay learned what had happened, he was stunned. In a war filled with acts of courage, Red's sacrifice stood apart. LeMay immediately recommended him for the Medal of Honor, America's highest decoration for valor. What happened next was unprecedented in military history. Red's injuries were so severe that his commanders were certain he would die within days. Determined that this hero should receive his nation's highest honor while he still lived. The Medal of Honor was approved in just 6 days, the fastest approval in the award's history, but there was no Medal of Honor available in the Pacific Theater. So a plane was dispatched from the United States, carrying the medal across the Pacific to Iwo Jima. On April 19, 1945, just 7 days after his heroic act, Brigadier General Loris Norstad pinned the Medal of Honor on Red Irwin's hospital gown. Red's citation read, "He, unhesitatingly, and with complete disregard for his own safety, grasped the blazing bomb and carried it toward the rear of the plane. His gallant deed was instrumental in saving the lives of his comrades." But Red wasn't finished fighting. Against all medical odds, he survived. Through dozens of surgeries and years of rehabilitation, he slowly rebuilt his life. He married his sweetheart, Betty, and raised 4 children. He became a businessman and a leader in his community, living a full life that was itself a testament to the power of the human spirit. Red Irwin lived until 2002, dying at the age of 82, 57 years after those 22 seconds that changed everything. He was the only B-29 crewman to receive the Medal of Honor during World War II. Today, the Air Force honors his memory with the annual Staff Sergeant Henry E. Irwin Outstanding Enlisted Aircrew Member Award. But perhaps the greatest testament to Red's heroism lies not in the medals or the honors, but in the lives he saved. 11 men went home to their families because of what Red Irwin did in those 22 seconds. 11 men who lived full lives, who raised children, who contributed to their communities, all because a young man from Alabama chose to carry death itself rather than let it consume his friends. In our modern world, we often wonder what makes a hero. The answer is simple. It's the willingness to sacrifice everything for others, to choose duty over safety, to carry the burden so others don't have to. Red Irwin carried a burning phosphorus bomb for 22 seconds, but he carried the weight of heroism for a lifetime. That's what makes him one of America's hidden heroes, and why his story deserves to be remembered. If you enjoyed learning about Staff Sergeant Henry Red Irwin, please subscribe to the American Story Vault and hit that notification bell. Tell us in the comments below about another forgotten American hero you'd like to hear about, because every generation produces heroes, and every hero deserves to be remembered.